What key life experiences have formed who you are today?
For that one, I would say my family kind of moved around a few times. My mom was in education; she was a school superintendent, and we sort of moved to different states a few times. I think that formed who I am because it sort of allowed me to be comfortable, you know, in different places, meeting different people, and kind of just different environments.
How did you become passionate and involved in architectural practice?
Out with an interest in architecture at an early age. I liked art, and I liked sort of how architecture combines sort of um, art and the kind of realities of construction and a lot of other, I guess, factors. So sort of this combination of art and science. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I think my interest just sort of blossomed as I learned a little bit more about it. you know, got my undergrad degree in it. And then so what I did was I went and did an undergraduate degree, and then I worked for a few years just to kind of make sure. I was like, okay, is this right for me, the profession right for me? And then I went back to grad school after that. So I kind of, I liked the undergraduate program. Then I tested it in the real world to see, okay, is this what I want to do? And then, kind of continue to develop an interest in it.
What are your core values and how are they reflected in your practice?
I mean, this is sort of complicated, I would say, in my mind, at least architects in general. You sort of sometimes have, running the business and the values of running a business can sometimes conflict with what your sort of architectural values might be. So architecturally, I would say I sort of identify with like critical regionalism or, I guess people would qualify, maybe more modern projects, which is not necessarily just critical regionalism, but, projects that take into consideration the context, the environment, and kind of develop a design solution that's specific to the site and the place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's definitely where my values lie. As far as my business is concerned, a core value for me is just, delivering, it's a service business, so delivering the client what they want.
What is your design process?
So, design process, for me, I think it's probably pretty similar to what the process of a lot of different architects. I'll meet the client, I'll try to understand what their requirements or program or, again, desires are for the project. I'll visit the site, I'll kind of do research about the site, and also, the project type or, again, what the client's similar projects the client likes. And then I'll begin with some initial sort of, probably concept massing, site planning, and also overall sort of concept development. And I'll move through that process, back and forth with the client. So starting out, again, it'll be sort of this initial, maybe like here's a concept board, here's some projects that I like, that I think are similar to what you're looking to do. We'll talk about, big picture material ideas and structural system ideas, and then we'll continue to refine it, and kind of move through the different phases of the project, schematic design development, and then the final drawings.
How do you collaborate with other individuals to realize your impactful work?
Collaboration has become easier and easier, I'd say, for architectural firms. It's a lot easier to do things remotely now than it ever was in the past. So we do a lot of, certainly we do in-person meetings and discussions, but we also do lots of Zoom meetings. We do lots of collaboration where we work in, we share a Revit model or a file that multiple disciplines and team members can work in. So all that, it's just easier to collaborate now than ever, I would say. And that's always important for any project, in my opinion, is having sort of all the team members involved as soon as you can, whatever the disciplines, that are required.
Do you have a favorite reading or architect that has made a large influence on you?
As far as readings, I like a lot of science fiction. I wouldn't necessarily say it influences me a ton in my work because it's sort of out there, but I think it's nice. I always really enjoy sort of the environments that are generated in science fiction books and movies. As far as architects, there's lots of architects that I like, which ones influence me a lot, but certainly, as far as architects that, I think are some of the best, be Renzo Piano, Carlos Scarpa. There's a lot of really great local architects too that, do amazing stuff. Eddie Jones, Rick Joy, Richard Kennedy. I like all of their work too. I would also say definitely David Hovey. I worked at Optima previous to starting my own firm, and so David Hovey and his kind of work and process influenced me a lot as well, I would say, or at least has some influence on me.
What will have the biggest impact in the future of architecture?
That's a tough one. I could see a lot of different things. I mean, certainly I think technology sort of is going to have an impact on architecture, in that, well, hopefully it does. I mean, certainly the way buildings are being constructed hasn't changed a whole lot for quite a while. So we'll see, I'd say to be determined if things like sort of, 3D printed type homes or some other material. I mean, concrete, of course, is where it's going. Isn't necessarily the most sustainable material, but, I think that has the potential to have a huge impact if somebody actually sort of does it in a way that makes sense. Right now it's still just, it doesn't really make sense yet, the technology and the equipment and everything. So that could have an impact on it. I would say VR type, experiences and spaces probably will have a big impact on architecture and where people live and stuff too, as that continues to develop and technology develops a lot more.
What advice would you give yourself if you were beginning in the profession today?
Decide, our architects are sort of like doctors in that there's a lot of different types of them. I didn't really think about that getting into it, but there's really a lot of different paths you can take as an architect, in different firms and different projects. So I think it's important to really think about that early, in my opinion, and sort of try to move in the direction that you like. I think it would just be, number one, like really know what type of architecture you want to be doing and how you want to plug in the architectural profession generally. Like, do you want to run your own practice? Do you want to be a principal in another practice? Do you want to focus on just healthcare? Do you want to do just sort of like design? Do you really like rendering? Do you really like, there's a lot of different things you can do.